Hello there, Leo Man and Mountain back again with another tent review. So today I'm testing an old tent really now. It's quite a well-reviewed tent, but I thought I'll give it a shot, seeing as it's not the usual style tent I would use. I'm much more of a dome tent lover, but we're trying out the OEX Phoxx II V2. Sounds like something an American pilot would say, doesn't it? Tunnel tent, basically. And, well, I borrowed it, this one. I've not bought it, because it gets rather expensive to start buying tents all the time, just to have a night in them and review them. So, let's go and get to the top of the testing grounds that I use and see what this tent's like and see if it's any good. So, let's go. Trig. Right, well, we are on the testing grounds now, and well, this is the pack size. It is big. That's my first little gripe with this. I can't put it at the bottom of my backpack like I do with all my other tents, because it's quite long the way it packs up. You could probably pack it down a bit shorter, but I think the poles won't allow that. So that's my first little thing there I've got to say about it. Otherwise, weight wise, 2.1 kilos, not a bad weight, got to say. It's about right for a two-person tent. So let's get this out of the bag and see how easy it is to set up. Well guys, this is the first time I'm going to set up this tent, so yeah, wish me luck. I should have set it up in the garden earlier this week, but it's been a terrible week weather-wise. So yeah, I'm going to get it up and see how hard that is, because hopefully it's not that hard, but you never know. So let's crack on. Well, I do have to say, it wasn't that bad to pitch, to be honest. A lot of pegs to put down. I mean, you have to peg down the inner and the outer. You can't attach it to the same peg, otherwise the outer skin will be a bit floppy. So there's a lot of pegs to do, definitely. I don't like this flap for starters, because that can't be closed. That's as closed as it'll go. So if you have got a bit of a breeze coming in, that's gonna really get in there and it's gonna be cold. It sits fairly low to the ground though, so that means you're gonna get good protection in the winter from any cold breeze coming under the tent. There is a vent at the back here that you can open up. Won't be doing that tonight because it is very cold. I think it was the first frozen morning of the year. Well, from where I'm from, which is the coast, which means it's going to be colder inland, so I'm sure people have had it before now. There's been snow in the lakes now for a couple of weeks, so that really means, you know, that it is getting to winter now, and it is officially winter. So yeah, it's going to be a cold one tonight, which is a good test. There's no wind blowing, but I'll be honest with you, I've seen these in action, and they are fairly bomb-proof. This looks a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. There's a bit of head height in there, so I'm actually not too unhappy about it now. But the footprint width-wise is massive, so that must mean that it's a pretty good vestibule area. So I can get me cooking on, I can have me dehydrated meal, boil my water in there, so that should be alright. But the tent wasn't that bad to put up. It says 15 minutes pitch time. I probably I could probably do it in 8 minutes. Not too bad. A lot better than I thought it was going to be. But like I say, I don't normally like these inner and outer skins being separate. I normally like to pitch it in one go. So yeah, there's not going to be a real test when it comes to weather, but like I say, I have seen these in fairly bad conditions and they've put up with it. This is the 2-man tent, obviously, because it's the Phoxx II V2. God, I feel like I want to go and shoot some aliens down Independence Day when I say that. Phoxx II! But it's a sturdy looking tent. It's not a bad looking tent, but we'll see what it's like overnight. And yeah, it's cold out here, so I'm gonna get some gloves on, get things set up inside, and I'll come back to you in there. Immediately I can tell you that this is not a 2-man tent. I mean, it barely fits in my bag and my sleeping mat. It tapers towards the end of the tent as well. So yeah, it's not a 2-man tent. You'd be very cozy if there was 2 men in here, or even 2 ladies. Very cozy. So yeah, not a 2-man tent straight away, I can tell you that. Some tents that say the 2-man, you can just about fit 2 men in there. But this is going to be very cozy. You've got to really know who you're lying next to. But other than that, lengthwise, it's very long. So if you are a tall person, you will have no problem lengthwise in this tent. It looks probably over 200 centimeters long, so you know, you got to be a real tall person for that. Maybe a Sasquatch, maybe. Lengthwise, pretty good. Widthwise, absolutely terrible. But if you're just on your own and you're one person, you're buying this tent, you've got plenty of room. So swings and roundabouts. But my mat's getting blown up now. This is the NeoAir Xtherm. Extra long, extra wide, extra fat. So yeah, this has no problem whatsoever fitting in here. So there you go. Well, this is going to be a very cozy night. Hope you like my curtain. Yeah, there isn't a right lot of room in here. This is the highest part, obviously, so there is a bit of room. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not like a bloody bivvy bag or anything like that. But yeah, I already feel a bit constricted, which is not good when this is where you're going to spend about 14 hours of your life. Yeah. What I am going to do, I'm going to stick a brew on, because I am getting a wee bit nippy. Get some warm liquid in me, and maybe chow down on a bit of a flapjack. Fancy that, to be fair. Well, yeah, it's size-wise, it's actually a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. But still, it's not that big. So anyway, I'm going to get a brew on. Well, there is just about enough room for a Jetboil. I've not used my table because then it'd probably be a little bit too high, so I've just sunk it into some heather. But there's room enough to boil your water if that's what you're doing. I'm just going to have a brew, coffee, and yeah, hopefully that warms me up a little bit. I've got my flapjack between my legs as well. It's not as weird as it sounds, and that's going to be a bit of a snack, a bit of energy, some calories to shove in my mouth. But I'm just sat here thinking to myself, you know what? It could be warmer in this tent because it's a little bit smaller and lower to the ground, and there's less heat height to warm up. Well, less height to warm up, if you will. So I'm thinking that I might have a warmish night. I mean, there is a lot of netting around the sides and the back here, but the vents are all closed and it is fairly low to the ground. But anyway, I'm going to boil this water and I'm going to get warmed up a little bit more. Right guys, well I've changed my clothes, put my base layers on and put some down pants on because it's a little bit chilly now. But I came up with a little idea to try, which is these little hand warmers. Now, when you get in the winter, doesn't matter what gas you use, even if it's what stuff that's always good for -16 or whatever they bloody say it is. Yeah, the gas is never that good. So what I decided to do, I decided to get a sock, stick one of them in the sock, put it underneath the gas canister and try and keep it warm. So you never know, it might work. If it doesn't, oh well, it's worth a try. If it does, then minter. I've got a new idea for winter, but it may be a bit costly to do this every time. I think these are about £2 or £3. I don't know, something like that. So, and you get 2 in a pack. But we'll find out if it's any good. It's supposed to last 8 hours, so it'll keep it warmish. But yeah, when I got changed in here, there's not a lot of room. There's just about enough room to get it done, obviously. But putting my jacket on and my coat and that, I just got out of the tent and just put it on outside, because otherwise I'd have a t-shirt halfway up my back and it was just a ball ache. But yeah, there's still enough room to at least sit up a little bit. Not fully, but nah, it's not too bad. So anyway, I'm going to get my tea on, and tonight's menu, I've got another something to eat me, obviously. Wow, bloody cold out there, making my nose run like a bloody tap. Beef stew with potatoes. Should be good. $6.99. Very expensive. Yeah, $6.99. Bloody hell. So yeah, I'm going to pour myself the water into my Jetboil and, you know, set it off, get it heated up. Oh, because I could do with some food. Well, the flame's pretty aggressive, so yeah, it might actually work. Oh. Right, as you can see, I'm in my proverbial coffin, and I think it's time for a bit of food. Yeah, you can't sit up in this, unfortunately, but does that really matter? I suppose it matters if you're obviously in this tent for 14 hours. You can't just lie down all the time, but I mean, it's not raining, so I will probably just end up getting out of this and having a bit of a wander around out there, because I can't see myself lying down for 14 hours. So yeah, I think I'll go outside for a bit of a walk around. But yeah, I mean, right now my head's sitting here and I can't sit up, because if I do sit up, my head's up here and I've got to eat. So anyway, beef and potato stew. I think you know what, I don't think it's been that long since I've had this one. But it's winter, innit? You need some wintry food. Oh, yeah, good that. Needed, well needed. Anyway, I'm not going to make you suffer watching me eat, as usual. And then once I've eaten this, we'll talk more about the tent. Right, so, thoughts. Now I've sat in this thing for a little bit. This is definitely a budget tent. Now the RRP on this, on I think it's Black's website, says £220. There is no way in any world that this is a £220 tent. This is definitely just a budget tent. Now it's on offer right now for £69, somewhat or other, across the board really. Looking at Go Outdoors, Black's, Millets, same company. So really, it's a £70 tent. I think when this was bought a couple of years ago, it was a £60 tent. It's gone up a tenner, which really isn't that bad, really, you know, if you look at it from that way. It has been more in recent months. I think, I don't know if it's a Black Friday special or what, I don't know. I don't really care. It's not worth more than £100, this tent. In my opinion, things like this, what you'll need to leave the door open. It's not very well thought out. It hangs down like a curtain, as you've seen, because this is too loose. Like, it's not tight enough. Same with the outside door, it's not tight enough. Now, I've been looking at the zips for the outer skin. I can't tell whether it's taped or seamed. There's bits of it that's taped, but I can't really tell from most of it if it actually is taped and seamed, because there's no shiny film on the on what the fabric that's been stitched. So I'm not sure it is, which is a bit strange for an OEX tent, which are supposed to be like their... It used to be budget OEX. I still think it is budget. It's not absolute budget like the Euro hike, but OEX is definitely not a mid-range. It's not a mid-range. It's an upper budget brand, I would say. But yeah, things like these loops, they're not very well thought and too big. These loops are too big. They need to be smaller so you can wrap it up nicely and snug. Otherwise it just falls out, which is no good really. Just in general, what I have against this tent is my preferences. I just like a dome tent. Similarly, you got more space, more room to wiggle, and this coffin style tent isn't really ever going to be my thing, but it's still good to try new things and try out what different ideas there might be. I mean, you never know, I might end up getting a tunnel tent that's different than this style, but this is more like I would say it's more the shape of a bivvy bag, if anything, with the hoop style. Like it is here, like it's big at the top, small at the bottom, but I mean there is room. I can't poo on it all night, can I? But as for it being a two-man tent, no, I can't see it being a two-man tent. It's, yeah, I wouldn't want to be in this tent with anyone else. Things that are good on it, I mean, it's got a lantern hook. The zips are pretty smooth. Don't like the zip ends though, because they're just literally just pieces of fabric stitched onto the zips. But the zips don't snag. I don't have any problems with the zips, in fairness. The mesh, I mean, the one cool thing I suppose you could say about this is if you're camping in summer, and you know you're not going to get any rain, and it's warm, it's really hot or whatever, you can pitch it without the outer skin, which is brilliant, really, isn't it? You know, you can leave your outer skin at home, saves weight, and yeah, you'll just have the stars over your head when you're sleeping, which is not a bad idea. It's pretty good. The vestibule area is big enough to boil some water in to make your dinner or whatever, so that's pretty good. That's also a plus, and it's got doors on both sides as well, so you got vestibules on each side, so you can dump some stuff in there, dump some stuff out on the other side, and then you can just literally have your sleeping mat, sleeping bag in here. So that's not too bad. Mesh wise, it's very meshy up on the top end here, which really is going to be the place you want your mesh, because you're going to be breathing this way, so you might not really get much in the way of condensation problems. I mean, although it looks a bit condensated on the outside, but I think that's purely from when I've been boiling my water, so you're obviously going to get something like that. The quality of material doesn't feel too bad, to be honest. It feels alright. I mean, it's a tent. There's not much you can do with a lower budget end tent when it comes to materials. You're always going to have the same sort of materials, but it doesn't feel cheap like the Euro hike does. The Euro hike feels like, well, let's put it this way, the ground sheet in the OEX feels nice compared to what you get in the Euro hike, which is basically tarpaulin. I mean, it's still waterproof, still does its job, but it weighs a bit more and it's pretty loud when you're moving on it, whereas this is pretty quiet when I'm moving around in here, and it doesn't feel horrible, yeah, and it doesn't weigh as much, so that's, you know, it's a fairly good positive in the fact the materials are pretty good for the price. There's not many pockets. I mean, there's a pocket up here which is absolutely useless because it's on the floor. There's no pockets up higher to put anything in, like, you know, a pocket up here would be pretty good. up on the top, just slot a phone in or whatever you want to keep in there. But the pocket down at the back here is pretty much on the floor, so I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. And it's at the top of the tent, so your head's going to be there. Really not a great place for a pocket. And when it comes to space in it, width-wise, it's got something to be desired. It's left a lot to be desired, because this is not wide enough to be a two-man tent. You stand outside and you look at this tent, you think, wow, that's going to be big inside. And then you get in the inner tent, you're like, oh, okay, it's not that wide at all. But it's nature of the beast with these tunnel tents, I think. It's a bit saggy. Because there are only two poles that cross over, one up here and one at the bottom, you're going to have a bit of sag in between, because it won't pull out as such, it won't stretch out as much. But yeah, I mean, right now, my neck's getting really uncomfortable because I can't sit up. That is my major gripe with this tent. I can't sit up in my tent. And that is pretty important. Like I say, you're spending 14 hours in this. You need to be able to sit up. So, yeah. I sound really negative about this. But it's a reality, isn't it, really? If you can't sit up in your tent while it's peeing it down outside, I mean, it's not peeing it down outside, fortunately, so I will probably go outside. But if it was peeing it down, and it's peeing it down from the time you set up to when you wake up in the morning, or when you put it down in the morning, you know, in winter, that's 14 hours. As a summer tent, I suppose it'd be alright. Like I said before, if it was a hot night, you wouldn't need the outer. That'd be pretty cool. But anyway, enough of me pooing on the tent. I've said some nice things about it, you know, there are some positives about it. But I think it just comes down to the fact this isn't my kind of tent. We'll see how I feel overnight. We'll see how my opinion might change, if it does change. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting night. A, because it's going to be so bloody long. And B, because anything can happen. Well, I'm out of the tent now, but I don't know if you can tell. And let me just switch off this. You might not be able to see it on this camera. But there's a big moon halo. You probably can't see it. It's a shame. But there's a big halo around the moon. Which is one of those weird things you can see at this time of year. When it's cold and you're outside and the moon's out and it's a little bit hazy. Sometimes get a ring around the moon. But I am out of the tent. Because, well, I couldn't be arsed lying down anymore. I thought I'd get up, stand up, walk around, you know, and there's a few benches out here. I don't know if you can see in there, this little shelter cairn here. You can go and sit on that. I can sit on that, even though it's frozen. Still, I can do that. So I've just had more reason to stay outside the tent. And that is because there is a high likelihood of seeing an Aurora Borealis tonight. And this moon here, right here, it's getting in the bloody way. It's too light. Bugger off, moon. But yeah, I've just set the GoPro facing north, the other one. And hopefully I get something from that, because that would be awesome. Unfortunately, I've been doing a night lapse already, but it was facing east. So it didn't catch anything. And apparently it's been quite spicy since I've been in the tent, which is annoying, but it's still out there. I've just taken a picture on my phone, I'll just put on my story, and there's a very faint bit of green in the sky. So yeah, I'm going to put the camera away, turn this bloody light off me so I can acclimatise and see the bloody views, if indeed I do get any. So yeah, exciting stuff. Well, it's getting so cold that it looks like my light's trying to fail. But we're not worried about that right now. Just get out of the way. Ugh, there's curtains getting in my way. Frozen tent already. It's not even 8 o'clock. Is it 8 o'clock? So it's 8:30 actually, so yeah. Anyway, still only 8:30. Imagine how cold it's going to get tonight. Anyway, I'm going to have a hot chocolate. That Aurora Borealis, unfortunately, was short-lived. I managed to get a picture of it. I didn't actually see it. Yeah, I'm still yet to chase those northern lights. But we're getting closer. Anyway, like I say, I'm now going to do myself a hot chocolate, I think. I've got hot chocolate or coffee. You know what? I'm an idiot. I've only brought 3 hot drinks. So, yeah, not good, really, that is it. A bit of a rookie error. So this is my last hot drink for tonight. I'm going to save one for tomorrow. And if I do fancy any more warmth, I guess I'm just going to have hot water. Sounds delicious. Yeah. But I think I'm going to leave it here for the night, and I'll come back to you guys in the morning. But yeah, Aurora Borealis. If I catch anything, it'll go up on the on the footage, obviously, the overnight footage. But yeah, oh, it's cold. It's getting very cold out there now. Quite nice actually. Yeah. Can't complain when it's beautiful and cold. And there's Aurora Borealis and there's a moon halo. It's actually a very good night. Even though it is minus something or other. But I'm not going to complain about that, because that is part of wild camping in winter, and it's going to get colder, so let's not worry too much about that. And this bloody thing is doing my head in. Ah. I'll see you guys in the morning. Well, good morning. Another successful night wild camping on Fair Snape Fell, and it's not a bad morning. It's cloudy, but it's not a bad morning. It's actually warmed up overnight, so the ice that had accumulated on the tent last night has all disappeared. So yeah, it's dried out a little bit, the tent, which is always a good thing. That means I don't really have to take it out when I get home if it's dry enough, but we'll see. So all that's left to do right this minute is pack up my stuff inside the tent, get out the tent, and we'll talk a bit more about the tent. Well, not a bad morning, is it? Nice bit of red sky. Now I'm just going to pack away the tent, and as you can see, a lot of my crap is just on the floor there because I can't put it in my bag yet. The reason being because I have to stuff this in lengthways or heightways in the top compartment of the bag. I can't put all the stuff in my top compartment and then put the tent in the bottom because it just won't fit, which is an annoying part of this tent. I mentioned it yesterday, or earlier on in the video, should I say. So yeah, I'm having to leave a few things out to then be able to put the tent in, and then I'll shove the rest of the stuff in. Right guys, I'm all packed away, left no trace as usual. So, final thoughts. I'm going to just speak from a personal point of view here. It's not my sort of tent, so any sort of review I'm going to give this, it's never going to be overwhelmingly positive. But what I will say is it's a sturdy tent. I have seen it in pretty bad weather conditions, works a treat, does its job, Condensation wise, there was a little bit, but I mean, it is very cold and you're never going to avoid condensation in the UK. Packability is fairly easy to pack away. I wouldn't want to do it in strong winds. I folded it up all as one. I put the top cover on top of the inner and I just folded it all inside. You probably wouldn't be able to do that if it was blowing a gale. But as tents go, it is a decent tent for the money, you know, £69, which is, you know, cost of living crisis more than it used to be a long time ago, even though they say the RRP is 220 quid. That's just for go outdoors to tell you that they're saving you a load of money. That's all that is. So you buy that £5 card. I would probably try another OEX tent, definitely would. You know, they're a good tent. The poles are aluminium. They're a decent pole, nice and lightweight. The pegs, they're okay. I mean, they're not special, but they do a job. Not like these little piddly Euro hike ones you get. So yeah, they're not too bad. The pegs are okay. I'll probably, I don't know, if I was to buy an OEX tent, you can buy OEX pegs, which are the aluminium ones that look a bit like the nature hike sort of pegs. Room wise, like I say, it's not a two-man tent. You know, you'd be touching toes, and if you've got a foot fetish, you'll be fine. But yeah, it's not great for size. I just really sound negative about this, but I'm not. It shouldn't be a negative review. It is an half decent tent. You know, it's a good starter tent if you want to get into wild camping. Say if you want to start doing it in summer as well, you can just use the inner. And you're not, you know, if it's a really hot night, you're going to be absolutely lovely in there, you know, bit of fresh air through the netting. But yeah, it's just not my kind of tent. That's the problem with this review. It's just not my go-to sort of style of tent, because I like to be able to have a bit of room in the tent, sit up, move about, get my stuff packed up, or pack, you know, open it up while I'm sort of outside the tent. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did it all inside the tent, but it was very claustrophobic when I was doing it, because I was trying to fold up my mat, my sleeping mat, and it was just difficult. But it wasn't not doable. It just wasn't. It was just a bit of a pain in the arse. Overall, where would I put it in the ratings of all the tents I've got so far? Well, it's definitely better than the Euro hike tent. Definitely. I mean, there's not even a question about that. And really, it's only what, £25 more expensive? If you just chuck that money in an OEX tent, honestly, you won't regret that. It's lighter. I mean, you could probably find a way of packing away that a little bit smaller. If you separated the poles and you just folded the tent in half again, you'd be able to probably fit it in the bottom of a bag like that. So yeah, I mean, it's a good tent. It's a good tent, but it's just not my kind of tent. But if you are a fan of tunnel tents, or you don't think you'd be bothered about that, or you know you're not gonna suffer with that sort of thing. I mean, I wasn't suffering, but it's just not comfortable. It's not as good as the 4-class, but the price reflects that. It's not a Helm 2, definitely not a Helm 2. Now, Cloud Peak 2. This is where it gets a bit dicey, because that's an expensive tent now, really, for what it was. When I went out in the Cloud Peak 2, and my mate Jack, who I borrowed the tent off, took that OEX tent, my tent was flapping all over the place, and it wasn't a great experience, whereas that was bomb-proof. So if you are caught out with a bit of bad weather, a bit of wind, or a bit of rain, I think you're going to have a better time in the OEX tent. So it's better than a Cloud Peak 2, which is a more expensive tent. Do I recommend it? Yes, I do recommend it. I recommend it as a good budget tent, a good starter tent to get into wild camping, and then from there you can build on it. That's it, guys, really. It sounds like a bit of a moany video, doesn't it? But it's really not. I'm not moaning about the tent, because it's a good tent. It's just not my kind of tent. And I think that's another thing, that if you're getting into buying tents and you want to figure out what kind of tent you want, you really need to look into it, you know. I was going to buy one of these a while ago, a long time ago, a couple of years ago actually. I was going to buy one, because I didn't really know a lot about tents then. I didn't think about what it was going to be like sat in a tent, you know, for 14 hours. And now I've got a bit more experience in wild camping. I have to be honest with you, I would never buy a tent like that now for myself, because I know I'm not going to enjoy it. So the best thing to do is to go to, you know, go to somewhere where they've got tents up, a camping shop, you know, go outdoors if they've got an outdoor tent section that have got these smaller tents up. Get in it, sit in it, think about what you're going to want out of a tent. You know, vestibule area is very important to me. Might not be important to anyone else, you know, but it's important to me. I need that space in the vestibule to cook, to, you know, boil my water, put my boots in there. I need that space. How many entrances has it got? Do you need 2 entrances? Or are you happy with just the 1? I mean, I'd be happy with just the 1, but it's always nice having 2. And then you got, how tall are you? You know, if you're a tall person, you're gonna want something the sort of length that the Phoxx II is, because it is a long tent, but it's not the widest. But if you're on your own and you're bloody 6'7", you'll be fine in that tent. Me, it was very long for me. I didn't need it to be that long. I'm 5'10", so you know, it's not necessarily an important thing height wise, but width wise definitely need that. Because I like to keep my bag inside the tent. I like to keep everything bar my boots in the tent, just to keep it off the wet ground, off any sort of muck or mud that I might be I might be camping on. Because believe it or not, it can be dry for days and days and days. As soon as you put your tent down, the bottom of that tent will get wet. So yeah, I don't like to keep my bags out on the side of it. But yeah, you really need to look into what type of tent is good for you and what you would prefer. Me personally, I'm a dome tent guy. You know, I will get a dome tent and I'll be happy with it. But my Helm too, it's got its issues, it's got its flaws. I mean, that's got its flaws. Every tent has its flaws, but you need to figure out what works best for you. So, what I'm saying is, do I recommend it? Yes. Do I recommend it for you? Not necessarily, because you might not like it, but it is a good tent. So, I'm going to wrap that up here, guys. Thanks for watching if you got this far. I mean, it's been a bit of a ramble, that, hasn't it, really? But, I mean, I have to be honest with you. You know, I'm not going to say every tent's a good tent, because they're not. And not every tent that is a good tent is good for you, because they're not. So, thank you very much for watching once again. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, of course. Please like the video. I need the engagement. I need people talking in the comments. I need people, you know, telling me that they like the video, because it all helps in the algorithm and boosts the channel a little bit more. But yeah, another tent review done. And now I'm going to take it home. It's going to need drying out, unfortunately. It wasn't as dry as I thought it was. And then I'm going to give it back to Jack and say thanks, but no thanks. But yeah, alright guys, I'll see you later.